Welcome back to the Music Marketing Podcast with Maddy and Alex at Burstamo. Today we are talking about whether you need a label to be successful as a musician. So we've got a lot of things that we want to cover with this because we don't really think labels in 2019 are necessary. Still play a big part in an artist's career, but you can essentially explode without having a label.
Yeah, the reason as well that I think it's really important to discuss is we get approached constantly and people take their music career and their aim is to get signed to a major label, and I don't think the industry works like that anymore, because in the past a label was 100% necessary because they were the only ones that had the money to be able to distribute and get the music physically made, whereas now there are so many opportunities for independent musicians that a label just isn't really necessary.
Yeah, like back in the day, it would just make so much sense because everyone was like pitching to get a label. They were the guys who had the money, they had the distribution, they would get your music in stores, they get you support slots. Now with social media, you can DM anyone you want on Instagram. Contacts aren't really a strong thing, and resources aren't something you necessarily need.
I also think that labels used to break artists, so they would take an artist before they'd blown up, and they would be the ones that would make them blow up. Whereas now, they only really sign people that have already got the attention. So even the ones that have sort of been a bit of a joke, like that have come from Vine, that have come from YouTube, that have come from memes and stuff, they sign them once they've got the attention. They don't sign them before and then get them to blow up. They just have like a kind of a different business model now. And I think that's because they need the money, so they need to have guarantees.
Yeah, and also they're like spoilt for luxury, really, because they have people coming to them now with ready-made fan bases. Because right now, if you want to start a band, you can get yourself on social media and start building fans before you even got music out. You can start creating content. Obviously, we don't necessarily recommend it. You should probably start with the music first and then start creating the content. But hypothetically, you could build a fan base straight away today without a label and just start creating content from hashtags on Instagram and Facebook and Instagram ads.
So should we talk about what a label actually does in 2019 and then how you can do that independently and when you should look at getting signed, so and if you should look at getting signed? Because when people approach us, they say, with this release I want to get signed, I want to get X amount of followers on Instagram so I can get signed. And it doesn't really work like that. Obviously, when you pitch to a label, if that's how you're doing it, it does look stronger if you have like this package made. But we always find that the labels approach you in time if you have that attention. If you've got a committed fan base, they're going to be the ones that are knocking on your door rather than you going kind of begging for them to sign you.
Yeah. Most of the artists that we've really worked with, when they've been signed, they haven't really had like a team around them. They haven't got all the resources in the world to be able to walk into Radio 1 and get their track on. What they actually get is an advance. So they get a lump sum of money to do, say, 3 releases through the label, and the label will see how that release does, and they'll have exclusive in the contract to be able to extend it anytime they want. And the label's business model is just to do this with as many artists as possible, and that's what the A&Rs are doing. They're just investing in lots of artists and picking a winner and hoping that that one winner will make back the losses from all of the others that didn't make it.
It can actually be kind of terrifying because these labels give you like a lump sum of money and they don't tell you how to spend it. They will say, here is X amount, spend it on whatever you want, but you have to see results. And that's a lot of pressure because a lot of musicians, you're obviously not in the business mindset. You're in the mindset of like, I create music, I want to get it out there.
And that's where the money usually goes.
Yeah, so that investment can be really difficult. You're going to spend it on marketing, you're going to spend it on social media
But
material.
musicians being musicians will spend it on production, like
and that's probably
gigs, touring, songwriting.
Yeah, and that's probably not the best investment because the labels can provide that in the later stages, and you can so easily do that yourself. The money should definitely be spent on the marketing. Because if you have good enough material that they want to sign you, the music isn't the issue for them. It's whether you can get a legitimate, dedicated fan base.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think that we come across a lot of artists that are quite lost after they get this advance. There's a lot of pressure on it, and we come across a lot of people who are kind of a little bit worried now that they've got signed and got this opportunity, because the next 3 releases are everything. You're not going to get another opportunity like this. And a lot of people come to us wanting this. They want to get signed, but actually, does it hold you back? Does it put more pressure on future releases than you actually want? So sometimes, like, you've got a dream, and the only way for a dream to disappear is actually for it to come true.
Yeah.
So you get signed, and then everything just changes, and you're not really sure what to do. You don't have that support for people to call and make things happen for you. You've got to do it yourself.
So in the past, a label works very differently to how it does now. So they would get an artist, and the money would be put into the creation of the music and then distributing it. And then the marketing it obviously isn't the same as it is now. So it would be like getting them on a tour, getting them in newspapers, getting them into the radio stations. Whereas now a label, the money they spend is like they want to sell your merch, they want to get ticket sales, they want to get you on major playlists. And it works so differently, but everything they do in-house, obviously they have contacts, they have teams of people, but you can do it yourself.
Yeah.
And I think it can be difficult because you do think that if you get signed, it suddenly all happens overnight, but you don't see the artist that gets signed and it just flops.
Yeah.
Because it does happen to so many and they just get dropped. So I always think you try it yourself first, and if the labels come to you, great.
Absolutely.
But don't spend your whole career running after them.
You don't need a label to make things happen for you. You've got your distributors who will get your music in the right places. You've got Spotify, which you can build a fan base purely off how good your music is. And we promote on this channel the fact that you need to be doing social media content, you need to be getting your music out there. But Spotify can make you blow up as an artist without doing a single thing. And Spotify gets a lot of criticism because they're part owned by major labels and they've got their stake, and people think that they're showing preferential treatment to the signed artists, but they're not. They're designed an algorithm for emerging artists to be able to get more exposure through those Discover Weekly playlists. And they wouldn't have created that if they were just going to help the major labels. So getting your music on Spotify in 2019, getting on Spotify official playlists, they are supporting emerging artists. New Music Friday, the local ones, you're seeing new emerging artists getting an opportunity to be on those big playlists. So you don't need the contacts at Spotify. You don't need the radio contacts. You can literally blow up and sell out your gigs from one upload on Spotify.
Yeah, I also think that everything like social media and digital streaming platforms, live events, all of them, everyone says that the majors have control over and that they're kind of going to beat the independent artists entirely. But that's not true. Every single one of these platforms, live events as well, they're all designed so that people... Facebook, they want you to stay on the platform. Spotify, they want you to stay on the platform. Live events, they want to sell tickets. And with all these things, the majors are only succeeding because their artists have the attention. So Spotify are putting these artists on the playlist because they know people will stream it. They're getting more ads running on Instagram and Facebook and stuff because people engage with it and they have the money to spend. Live events, they're going to book these bigger artists because they're going to sell tickets. But independent artists can do this. If your music is a good enough quality, Spotify are going to put it on playlists because it's good music and people will stay on the platform and listen to it. So it's very easy to point fingers. So they're so easy to blame as well, because if you're not succeeding and an artist that you think is pretty average you can say it's because they've got major labels behind them.
Yeah, it's really easy. Everyone in life finds something to blame, but everything you've mentioned there, you can do on your own. And the major labels, I think, are getting scared because they had radio locked down, but no one's listening to it anymore. They had music channels locked down. No one's really watching them anymore. It's all just Spotify and YouTube, and everything is open email addresses. You can get in touch with anyone you want, and you've got an algorithm on your side. So I think the answer is, if you need a label, labels help, but you've got to do it yourself.
I also think that the market now entirely chooses whether an artist succeeds.
Yeah.
Whereas in the past, labels could sort of like mold it a little bit, so they could get an artist and they could test the reaction, and then they'd mold the artist a little bit more, and they'd make the artist fit the market, and then that's that. Whereas now, there's so many people out there on social media that anyone, if they've got the good quality content, can get an audience,
Mm-hmm.
as long as you're putting in that time, that effort, and you actually have that solid content. Because there's so many little niche audiences. If you look at YouTube as well, there's an audience out there for everyone. There are channels that do tech, there's channels that do travel, there's channels for literally everything. And it's the same for musicians. There's an audience out there for absolutely anything.
Should we wrap up by talking about how you get signed and how you actually do attract a major label for those who are looking at it? Because from my point of view, it is about not trying to attract a major label. I think it's a complete waste of time and resources.
It's also not attractive for them. Like
No.
they're not gonna be like, oh, this person's emailed us 50 times today.
Yeah.
They really want to get signed by us. They keep DMing us on. It doesn't work like that.
And I think the older generation of the industry are still thinking that kind of, I need to put together an artist that has a fantastic sound, fantastic image and present it to the labels. And that still does but that message gets pushed through the industry. But now if you just focus on yourself and what you do, you will attract a label if you get in the right places. The labels are looking at who's on the big Spotify playlist and who's getting the streams.
They're also looking at things like TikTok. They're looking at the artists. Like if you look at Shawn Mendes, for example, he started on Vine. He was doing like they're 7 seconds, aren't they, Vine? Yeah. He was doing like 7-second covers, and like teenage girls fell in love with him. And it was so obvious for major labels, we'll sign him, we'll release one track, and there's going to be millions of teenage girls that are going to download this. And that's proven itself that like you don't need to write an amazing song and shove it down their throats. You instead get an audience and you show them that people care about you and they want to listen to your music, because that's all they really want. So I think that's how we kind of explain it. How do you get a major label to sign you? You get a dedicated audience.
Yeah.
And that's entirely through social media.
Yeah. And you do need to attract the attention of the A&Rs who are, they will still make the decision making. So do make sure that you do interact with them and make sure that they're following you. And you can do that through social media content. You can DM them, but make sure you've got everything on point that we've mentioned in this episode before doing it, because you only get one shot.
Yeah, the one shot is the main thing, because if you email them so early on in your career and then 3 years later you email again, but they think, I recognise that name, I'm going to search that email again. They read back your first email and it was honestly just like complete rubbish. You were embarrassing yourself. They're not even going to look into you again. They're going to see that and be like, oh, they're not worth our time. So make sure you're at the right point in your career and you can actually prove to them that you're worth signing, because they need proof of that, and they kind of need they need it to get sales. They need to get the money. They're a business.
They've got to make money, So you've got to make sure your brand's on point. You've got to make sure your music is getting used in the right places, because they make money from selling your music to movies, TV, merch, any kind of sync, any kind of streams, radio play. Make sure that you're a good proposition to make money. Should we end it there?
Yeah, I think that's everything.
Yeah, thanks very much for listening. Do leave us a review on whether you're listening on iTunes or podcasts, Spotify, anywhere. Leave us a review. If you found it useful, do share it with your friends. Thanks for listening, and see you in the next one.